Earlier this year, you said that you trembled at the thought of Donald Trump becoming president, that he had an instability that bothered you. Now that it's a reality, what are your thoughts?
Well, I hope he makes a success of it. I made comments then that I believed, and I don't walk away from what I've said, but I'm not really relevant in the sense the American people have spoken, and in a democracy you accept the outcome. It's a surprise, surprised me, it surprised a lot of people. I think in the end, Donald Trump won because people wanted change, wanted something to shake the system up. And of all possible Democratic Party candidates, Hillary Clinton offered more of the same, a continuity, the status quo, whereas Trump, with all his imperfections and indiscretions and so forth, represented the possibility of change. And if you're an American who felt left behind and neglected, you're more likely to support somebody who offers the hope of change than somebody who is the quintessential establishment candidate and, for added good measure, calls you deplorable. I mean, what do you think the reaction of an unemployed white male in an industrial state who's lost his job at the age of 55 thinks of somebody who calls him deplorable? He wants a bit of tender, loving care at least.
What do you think are the risks to Australia in Donald Trump's presidency?
In the long run, am pretty confident that the historical warmth of the relationship will continue. I don't believe the new administration is going to walk away from old allies. I mean, the most important element of our relationship is, of course, ANZUS, and also underpinning that is the Five Eyes intelligence sharing arrangement, which obviously involves countries other than the United States and Australia. I don't see those things being disturbed. I think one of the things we can look forward to is more money being spent by America on defence, and that is likely to end up strengthening the involvement of the United States in the Asia-Pacific region. So those people who are talking about the need for some kind of radical recasting of our attitude towards the United States forget the reality that this is a relationship so deeply embedded in history and sentiment that it survives changes of personnel both in Canberra and Washington.
A poll of 100,000 Australians earlier this year, though, found that 70% of Australians thought that if Donald Trump were elected, Australia should distance itself from the United States. Given his stated belief that the US can't be a security guarantor necessarily for allies such as Japan, his dismissal of NATO and so on, isn't it essential that, contrary to what you say, that Australia should be hedging its bets rather than depending on the US?
Well, if you want America to continue to be involved, you don't hedge your bets, do you?
Well, surely if you were having a realist position, you always hedge your bets.
I think the realist position is to react to events as they occur. Now, that poll was taken at a time when the media was essentially calling Trump an aberration, somebody who wasn't going to win the presidency, and if he did was highly dangerous. Now, he's won the presidency against the expectations of just about everybody. My judgment is that it will turn out to be a little less radical and a little less scary than many people have suggested.
Sorry to interrupt you.
And therefore, the worst thing we could do is to react in a way that anticipates something that isn't necessarily going to happen.
But you're saying that history and tradition and the historical strength of our relationship will dictate that alliance will continue to work going forwards. But so much of what we've seen with Donald Trump has bucked any sense of history or tradition in the United States.
Well, we haven't really seen anything of him in office or as the president-elect. Now, obviously, people reacted, as I did and many others, to what he said, but he's now the president-elect. And whilst I don't walk away from what I've previously said, nobody should feel constrained to do that. I do believe that he will take into account the historical warmth of the relationship and that he is a person who will understand that the American people have voted for a man who promises to strengthen the role of America and the influence of America in the world. I mean, one of the reasons why he won is that I think a lot of Americans are unhappy with the way in which Barack Obama has contracted American power and American influence. And Hillary Clinton aligned herself very much with the Obama agenda, particularly towards the end of her campaign.
People are also saying that it demonstrates a disconnect between the political leadership in both the major parties and ordinary voters. To go back to that survey I mentioned again, with 70% of Australians saying under Donald Trump we should distance ourselves, we haven't seen any of the senior figures in the Labor or Liberal Party today share that same sentiment. Isn't that an example of that very disconnect right there?
Well, I think the disconnect that's most important is in other areas. I agree that there's a lesson in the American result for both political parties in Australia. If you believe, as I do, in the value of globalisation and the value of free trade, we've got to find a better way of explaining its benefits. I don't want America to turn her back on free trade. I don't want America to turn her back on globalisation, nor do I want Australia to do that. But everybody has got to do a better job of explaining the benefits of globalisation. And I think everybody has got to understand that it does carry pain and penalties for some people. And whilst you should keep going forward with globalisation and freer trade, you've got to try and help the people who are disconnected. And I think that was one of the strengths that Trump had that Hillary Clinton didn't have. He didn't insult those unemployed white male workers in the Midwest. He embraced them. And whereas Hillary Clinton called them deplorables. Now, it was a failure of a most fundamental and elemental political lesson.
How do you... Donald Trump during the campaign has demonstrated that he is erratic and he's thin-skinned. As a world leader, how do you negotiate in good faith with somebody like that?
Well, I think you have to. That was how he behaved in the campaign. And quite legitimately, people, including myself, I openly admit, reacted to that. But now he's won and the great democratic verdict has been delivered. The people have spoken. We must accept and respect it and get on with it and not say, how on earth did this happen, as though the people were bound to conform to some kind of canon handed down from high. We have to accept he's been elected and wait and see what occurs.
Mr Howard, always fantastic to get your insights for the viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.